What's up, gang? It's Deltia from DeltiaSgaming.com, here with my little buddy Oinker, oink oink, and today we're going to set up our bars for DPS in the Elder Scrolls Online. I've been getting a lot of questions, and I've been answering a lot of questions in the stream and doing some demonstrations with the nuggets on how exactly it is I set up my bar for DPS. And so this video contains some good, useful tips, whether you're new to DPS, starting out, a pro, anything. I'm going to go over some general concepts to setting up your bar. Regardless of class, regardless of race, this video will help you out. So let's get started. Here's a sample video of a Nugget Nation trial run that we did, kind of as training, and I'm the DPS role. And so basic understanding of DPS in the Elder Scrolls Online. There's three things that I always tell everyone: buff, spam, execute. If you can do those three things, you can produce high DPS in Elder Scrolls Online. What the hell am I talking about? Buff. What this is you want to apply major and minor buffs. Major buffs are applied from characters specifically, usually. So these include increased spell power, increased weapon power, increased critical, and increased spell critical. The minor buffs usually come from a passive from each class specifically. For instance, if you want to get more spell power, Templars cast Adon's Wrath ability. If you want to get more weapon power, Dragon Knights cast an Earthen Heart. So maintaining a major and a minor buff is very, very important. You also want to take another buff, for example, like usually a damage over time effect or reducing armor or spell resistance. So generally you're going to have two buffs that are going to be applied, a damage over time effect. While those things are applied, you're going to do a spammable or repeatable attack ability. Every class has one, and if your class doesn't, or you don't know what to use, each skill line has something like this. So, Bow, for instance, has Snipe. Two-hander has Wrecking Blow. Destruction Staff has Force Pulse, so on and so forth. The primary objective here is to apply your buffs timely and only when they're needed, and then move into a spammable attack. Lastly, we have Execute. For those who don't know, Execute is a finisher. So as mobs' health reaches a certain threshold, that attack becomes significantly more powerful. So powerful, in fact, that it's probably the most damage dealing thing that you have possible. Making it, once they reach that certain health threshold, you just apply it. Every class pretty much has one except Dragon Knight. So Mage's Fury, a magical base finisher for the Sork at 20% health. Impale or Killer's Blade for the Nightblade, 25% health. And of course, Radiant Destruction for the Templar at about 40, though some would argue with me. Also, some non-class specific finishers exist. Two-hander has Executioner, and so on and so forth. So, the idea here is to apply some of your class-specific abilities, some of your non-class specific abilities and weapon skill line to apply your major, minor buffs, spam an attack while those are up, and then execute. That is the recipe for DPS. So let's show you how to set up in a bar. Say Microsoft PowerPoint time. Oh snap. Okay, this is important because this will work, and I want it to seek into your brain. When you're setting up your own bars, whether you're at home, in your car, well, I guess you wouldn't be in your car. Anyways, the premise here is 1 through 5 plus an ultimate. Remember, buff, spam, execute, right? So the very first thing we're going to want to put on our bar is the critical buff. Stamina has a critical buff via the Fighter's Guild ability, the third ability in there, Expert Hunter. So everyone has access to that. You level up Fighter's Guild just by killing zombies and doing Fighter's Guild quest. The Mage's Guild contains the spell power critical, or excuse me, a spell critical buff, Mage's Light. You get that by getting lore books in or around Tamriel. Those are the first two things. Now, key thing to know about it. One is toggled on, one buff is while slotted. Expert Hunter, you just have to have it slotted on your bar. You don't have to activate it, though activating it usually is a good damage increase. Inner Light has to be activated, and it's toggled on. So essentially you want to put both of these on your bar to get that spell critical bonus or weapon critical. That is the first thing that I usually put on my bar. Working left to right, crit is important. Next that's most important is boom, 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 Weapon and spell power. So you can get these class-specific things, have them, but everyone has access to a two-hander. Two-hander gives you the momentum buff as major brutality. That's 20% more weapon power. The Mages Guild, once again, you're going to see a lot of Mages Guild, has the spell power via entropy. So we got the critical, we got the power. Now, the easy part here is the critical is basically toggled on, slotted. This is active. So the weapon power buff, major brutality, via momentum, which Nightblades can also get via power extraction. Sork can also get free crit surge. I have a list of buffs on my website, so if you want to know other ways to get it, feel free to come check it out. I will post that link in the description. The handy thing about the stamina build is you get basically 30 seconds of uptime, is what it's called, where you don't have to recast it and still getting that buff. That's helpful because every second you use to cast an ability, you're lowering your damage. However, the spell power one is only 14.4 seconds at max level. So you're going to have to cast that quite frequently. But at 20% more spell power damage, you really need to keep that up. So that's what you're going to keep casting, priority number 1. Moving on. Usually you're going to apply a dot or a damage over time effect. I just have a couple of examples here, one for stamina, one for magic. One is in the two-hander, Brawler. It applies a damage over time effect and then also destructive reach. These are not ideal, but just to get the concept in place. For my Omega Templar, for instance, I use Purifying Light. It's a 6-second cast, it procs Dawn's Wrath ultimate generation, and it also gives me the minor spell power buff. It lasts 6 seconds and then it blows up, storing up damage and doing a huge amount. Let's say you're on a bow user stamina. You can use poison injection. Let's say you're on a magical Sork. You could use liquid lightning. So essentially the premise is you're going to usually have one buff, a couple buffs you have to maintain, including a damage over time effect. That does not apply to every single build, but just so you understand the concept of how to produce damage. Moving right along, and number 4 key is our good old spammable ability. Spam, spam, thank you, ma'am. And the 4 key, I have Wrecking Blow. Wrecking Blow is a powerful stamina ability that gives you empowerment, making your next attack hit 20% harder. Everyone has access to this, and this is why two-handers make an ideal DPS weapon for stamina users. Because if you look, they have everything they need right in that weapon tree. Below it, I have Force Pulse, which is the spammable attack and destruction staff. And also another really good powerful tree for magic users. Both of these abilities you're going to basically click over and over and over while your buffs are maintained. Remember, the most important thing is to maintain those buffs. Crit, power, dot, spam. That's it. And then finally we have Execution. Execution, very, very important to keep up because once they hit that threshold, almost nothing else matters. Almost nothing else because it's going to hit so much harder. To give you an example of this, on my Magic Nightblade, usually my funnel health hits around 11 to 12k, 11 to 12,000. If I get an Impale at around 20% health, I'm hitting for 20,000. It's that much more powerful. So two-hander, once again, has Executioner. So you can literally just spam that, maintaining momentum to finish off a mob or a boss. And now the tricky part is not a lot of weapon class skill lines, not a lot of weapon class skills for magic users. Every class but the Dragon Knight has something like this. So Templar has Radiant Destruction, Sorks have Mage's Fury, and then Nightblades have Impale. And then Dragon Knights are kind of, SOL on that. But essentially everyone but a Dragon Knight has a finisher for magic. So that's how that works. Last but not least is your ultimate. Another huge benefit for stamina is they have Flawless Dawnbreaker. Flawless Dawnbreaker is absolutely incredible. It gives you an 8% flat damage increase. I'll say it again, 8% just for having it slotted. Are you kidding me? You don't even have to activate it. No wonder people are playing Stam Bam Thank You Ma'am. It's very, very powerful. The ultimate actually works very well in PvP, not so well in PvE. So generally most people keep it on their single target damage bar and then swap back to do another ability that maybe produce high damage. High damage, Shooting Star or Meteor from the Mages Guild. This is absolutely incredible. It's probably the second best ultimate in the game for producing damage. Shoots a meteor down, does a huge amount of damage up front, and then leaves a, I don't know, thing on the ground that's technical, and does a lot of damage over time. So when this is up, as a magic user, you want to plop that down. Okay, recap real quick. If you get nothing out of this, I want you to get this. Buff, spam, execute. You do those three things timely as a DPS, you will produce high damage. It's live demo time on my Omega Templar. So I want to show you a good spot to test something as a friend, with a friend or solo. It's in Kardala, Lower Craghorn. What you do is there's some spirits inside of this delve here that you go walk around, and if you kill them, you'll get something called a Spirit Stone. The Spirit Stone is used to summon these champions from their graves. The one that I'm at currently, right here in the northeast section, heals itself. It doesn't really do too much damage, so it doesn't pose a significant threat. So if you're trying to test your DPS out, it's ideal to come to. Okay, so I'm going to go over my bar and my setup working left to right. So just to prove that my builds do the same concepts that I'm telling you. I have inner light here. That's my spell critical. I have my buff Purifying Light, which is going to store up damage, really low cost, and maximum damage of 15,000 damage at 6 seconds. Then I have Entropy for my spell power. Now I don't put it in the 2 key. There's a specific reason. I'm not going to explain that in this video. So I have my Structured Entropy for spell power. And then I have my spammable ability, Puncturing Sweeps. I like Puncturing Sweeps because it self-heals, knocks back enemies, and does a lot of damage. Plus, I can weave with it, so it's ideal for me. Next up is Radiant Oppression. My execute, it's just masterful. And then I have Solar Prison. You can go with the Mages Guild Shooting Star, which is on my back bar, but I do put this on my front bar in case I need to drop a Nova during Vet DSA if the healer's down or something like that. So I don't want to double bar it. This has some good utility. So what am I going to do? Delta, you should 1. Buff, Entropy, Purifying Light. 2. Spam with my Puncturing Sweeps. 3. Execute with Radiant Oppression. It's that simple. So let's go try this out. I'm going to shut up here so I can actually do some damage. Let's see if we can't do something spectacular. 3, 2, buff. No, you're not going to heal yourself. Entropy's down, reapply it. Waiting for that 40%, 40%. Come to daddy! Ah, you healed yourself again, you little bugger. See, this is why this is ideal, because you can sit and beat on this guy for basically ever if you really wanted to. Pro roll, see that? See that? Oh, my DPS outkilled him. Alright. So, without bashes, you can produce a lot more damage. Ideally, you want to come down here with a friend, one tanking it, and then you, so you don't have to bash it over and over, and you can just practice your DPS. And that it's just that simple. All I did was apply Purifying Light every 6 seconds, kept my entropy up every 14, used my good old sweep spam, and then boom, laser beamed that his or her. I don't know if that's a her, but not a pretty looker. Anyways, the premise is that. Please leave me some feedback. I want to know if this is helpful at all. I think it went really well on my stream and my guild only event, and if it continues to do good, I'll do more and more sessions on this, just like resource management, movement, line of sight, top 5 tanking tips, anything that you want to know. But I want people to understand DPS, because most people pick it because they think it's easy. DPS is hard in this game. It really is. And what separates a good DPS from a great is just focus and execution. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to read the comments, and hopefully you guys got a lot out of this video.